All right, our next guest is the chairman of an organization dedicated to providing real, significant solutions to the most important issues facing our country today. General Chairman of American Winning Solutions for the Future and former Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives, Newt Gingrich was the architect of the Contract for America, which led the Republican Party to victory in 1994. It also captured the majority of the House for the first time in 40 years. Former college history professor, author, international expert on world history, military issues, and international affairs, and the longest-serving teacher on the Joint War Fighting Course for Major Generals are some of the titles he holds. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor and privilege to welcome to the stage a true American patriot, Newt Gingrich.
This is quite a crowd. I asked Calista to come and stand with me because she's from Whitehall and has spent all week campaigning here in Wisconsin as a Wisconsinite, and we've been having a great reception. I also, some of you know, our son-in-law Paul Lubbers is from Sheboygan, and so we have connections on both sides of the state. And last night we were up at Green Bay inspecting the team that we have a share of, and so. We're really glad to be back in Wisconsin, and I'm delighted so many of you are out here. Wisconsin on June 5th will be the most important center of decision-making in America, and I'm glad that all of you are committed to being for the candidate who is determined to protect the taxpayer, protect our children, and do what is right for America. Plus and I came way back in 2009 and did a fundraiser in Milwaukee for Scott. We then, I came back, actually right here to Waukesha, just before the election and campaigned with him. And he was saying what he was going to do. And he was open and he was out there. And as a result, the people of this state elected a Republican Senate, a Republican House, a Republican Governor, a Republican U.S. Senator. And the people were not confused. And the entire fight of the last year and a half has been an effort by a small interest group with enormous money to change the will of the people in a way that I think is very much against democracy and very much against self-government. I commend you for standing there and being willing to fight on June 5th and make sure that we win. And I think it's really one of the most important elections in American history and will change, literally, behavior all across the country. So thank you for being active citizens. Let me also say I'm very proud, Calista and I both are, to be associated with Ralph Reed and the tremendous job he's done all across the country. I don't think any place more effectively than in Wisconsin. I mean, the number of folks who are here today, the number of folks who've been out at the victory centers, the number of people who are organizing is very encouraging. This is the most important election of your lifetime. The re-election of Barack Obama will be a disaster for our children and grandchildren and a disaster for our country. And you are key to having a grassroots campaign that stops the left from continuing to be in power in Washington, D.C. And I thank you for your active involvement. But let's be really clear how big the stakes are. American civilization, as we have known it, is under attack on two fronts. On one front, there's a radical secularism which would literally drive God out of our language, out of our life, out of our government, and make us a country of extraordinary un-American nature. On the other front, there is radical Islamists who would impose Sharia. You just saw it with the leading cleric in Saudi Arabia who said every church in the Arabian Peninsula should be destroyed, with no particular complaint from our State Department. So these are the two fronts of the campaign we're engaged in. We need to understand this is a historic cultural fight for the very survival of American civilization. And let me be very clear. We believe, and Chris and I have both done books and we've done movies on this, we believe that this is an exceptional country, not because you and I are exceptional, but because we are the only society in history that says we have been endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights. And that means we're the only society in history that says power comes from God to each one of you personally. And then you loan power to the government. This is the... This means that you are a citizen and the government is supposed to be a public servant. Obama has the opposite model. He has a European elitist model in which the government is sovereign and the government tells us what to do. And that's why this fight is so fundamental. And it's not just Barack Obama. It's the academic community, it's the news media, it's many people in entertainment, it's the judges. There's an entire elitist collection of people who believe that they know better than us, that they're going to redefine for us, and that they are going to, in fact, dictate to us. Chris and I did a film about Pope John Paul II called 9 Days That Changed the World. And it's a remarkable movie. And we did it because when we were doing a movie on Reagan, we went to Europe and we interviewed Václav Havel and Lech Walesa. Havel had been the president of Czechoslovakia, a poet and a playwright who had spent 3 years in prison fighting the Soviets. Of course, Lech Walesa was the electrician who became the head of the Solidarity Union and then became president of Poland. And we asked both of them, what was the decisive moment in defeating the Soviet Empire? We thought they'd give us a great Ronald Reagan anecdote. They both said, oh, it was when the Pope came in June of 1979. And he spent 9 days on a pilgrimage to Poland. And he, the first morning, had 3 million people in Victory Square and for Mass. And they looked around and they suddenly realized, as somebody says in our movie, we suddenly realized there were more of us than there were of the government. Now that's the whole point of the mobilization that you represent. There are more people in America by a huge margin who believe our rights come from our Creator than there are people who believe that we should erase God from the American memory. We need to assert that. But we need to break beyond normal politics. We need to reach out to every person of every ethnic background, of every political persuasion who agrees that our rights come from our Creator, and we need to build a large movement dedicated to changing the judges, changing the bureaucracy, changing the politicians, changing the news media, and changing the college professors until we get back to an America which understands where its rights come from and understand what its future is based on. I take this so seriously that Vince Haley, our campaign manager, and I spent 9 years working on a paper which you can see at newt.org, which is a 54-page outline of what to do about judges and the rights that we have as citizens. We are not helpless in front of a dictatorial, anti-religious bigot. We are in a position as people to use the legislative and executive branches to balance off the judicial branch. And I would urge you at some point to take a look at that paper, and you'll realize that intellectually, we have been giving up an argument we shouldn't give up. Of course the law schools believe in judicial supremacy. That makes lawyers a unique class. None of the Founding Fathers would have agreed. None. The number one complaint of the Founding Fathers was no taxation without representation. The number two complaint was British judges, who they regarded as dictatorial imposition of the king rather than representatives of justice. They're very clear. In the Federalist Papers, Alexander Hamilton says, the judicial branch is the weakest of the three branches. It will never fight the other branches because it would inevitably lose. This whole modern notion of the Supreme Court being supreme over the President and the Congress is nonsense. It is one of three co-equal branches. And we need to reassert that we, the people, are the ultimate definers of America, not a handful of appointed judges. You also need to reassert in your state legislature and in your local school boards that you expect teachers to actually teach the facts. Every child should encounter the Declaration of Independence and explore the question, what did the Founding Fathers mean? We are endowed by our creators. Why did they say we hold these truths to be self-evident? Why does the Northwest Ordinance of 1787 to organize Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, part of Wisconsin, and Michigan. Why does it say religion, morality, and knowledge being important? Schools are vital. Notice the order. Religion, morality, and knowledge in that order. Eliminated by the modern left to be only knowledge, which explains much of what's wrong with our culture today. And so, you don't have to have a theological agenda. You just say, gee, why don't we teach the Northwest Ordinance and explore why would they say that? Or you could have them use Lincoln's second inaugural, March 1865. 4 years of Civil War, 620,000 dead, more than in all of our other wars combined. Lincoln had been dramatically reshaped by the pain of war, and he knew that he personally had imposed it because at any point he could have accepted the South leaving and the war would have ended. Because he took it personally, he became a dramatically more religious person, read the Bible every afternoon. And if you get a chance to go to Washington, stand in the Lincoln Memorial. Read the Gettysburg Address, which says, "One nation under God," which Lincoln personally wrote in by hand while sitting, looking at the first National Military Cemetery at Gettysburg. And that's what got me back into politics when the Ninth Circuit Court ruled the one nation under God is unconstitutional in the pledge. And I concluded that that was so un-American and so hostile that we needed a long-term strategy to replace judges who don't understand America. But then turn and read aloud slowly as Lincoln would have done it. The second inaugural. 702 words, 14 references to God, 2 quotes from the Bible. And you tell me how a secular historian can explain Lincoln with no reference to his religious beliefs, no reference to what he thought God intended, no reference to Lincoln subordinating himself and his country to the will of God. It is impossible to be historically accurate in describing a secular Lincoln because that person did not exist by 1865. It had been replaced by a deeply religious person. So, Plist and I talked about it a long time, and we knew it would be very hard. But we decided that running for president mattered because it was an opportunity to take to the American people fundamental, basic decisions about who we are and what we have to do. And they all come together in the same pattern. For example, if you want to take on radical Islam, you have to have an American energy policy that creates American independence so that no future president will ever again bow to a Saudi king. If you truly believe in religious freedom, you have to take on an administration which is able to simultaneously apologize to fanatic, radical Islamists who are killing young Americans while waging war against the Catholic Church and sees no contradiction in the fact that if you are a Christian, they can oppose you, but if you're a radical Islamist who kills Americans, they owe you an apology. Now that's how bad Obama is. You know, the administration has adopted a principle since the burning of the Korans, which, by the way, should have been responded to by the president calling on the religious leaders of Afghanistan to condemn the Muslim political prisoners who had been defacing the Korans and using them to sneak messages out of jail, because they were the ones who made the Korans defaced, not the Americans. But they've adopted, as part of their ongoing effort to appease everybody who's our enemy, a new slogan, which they think is quite clever. It says, "We will hold those things to be sacred, which others hold sacred." Now, they did it for the Koran. My challenge to the Obama administration is simple. Put back up all the crosses which have been taken down by judicial fiat. If you want to hold things sacred, we'll let you hold things sacred. Tell the Muslim Brotherhood if they keep burning churches in Egypt, you're cutting off the $1 billion you just gave them. We need an administration which actually thinks religious liberty includes Christians and Jews. And then we need to turn to entertainment television and say to them, if you're going to run a TV show that has the word Christian in a derogatory way in it, as one of the networks is right now, try running exactly the same show with the word Muslim instead of Christian. Because if you can't say Muslim, you shouldn't say Christian, because it tells you how derogatory the show is and how fundamentally wrong it is to have anti-religious bigotry disguised as entertainment. Now that's how fundamental this fight is. And in all of it's very practical. An American energy program will create American jobs, keep the money here at home, strengthen the dollar, increase the royalties to the federal government, lower the price of gasoline below $2.50. If gasoline dropped as much in price as natural gas has in the last 4 years, it'll be $1.13 a gallon. So you can simultaneously weaken the forces of radical Islamism and strengthen the forces of American prosperity and improve the quality of life for Americans. And that's the kind of policies we need. We need policies which put us back in charge of our lives. We need policies which, frankly, dramatically reduce the size of Washington. As Speaker of the House, I led the effort to balance the federal budget, and we balanced it for 4 straight years for the only time in your lifetime. Paul Ryan, who you'll hear from presently, I think is a great guy and is doing a great job as the Budget Committee Chairman, and he's moving us in the right direction. And the key to balancing the budget is very simple. We want to shrink the government to fit the revenues available, not raise the revenues to catch up with Obama's credit card. And I'll close with this practical example of morality. It is immoral for us to spend so much that we crush our children and grandchildren with debt. It is a moral obligation to get back to a balanced budget. If we do it correctly, we could impose, and you'll have to impose it, Washington will not do it voluntarily, you could impose a balanced budget on Washington. And at the same time, you could put all the royalties from natural gas and oil into a sinking fund to pay off the debt. If we had discipline and did that, if we opened up America to energy independence, you would simultaneously pay off the debt for your children and grandchildren. So literally, by the end of their lifetime, America would be virtually debt-free. That would have a dual effect. No bowing to Saudi kings, no worrying about Chinese debt holders. Both would be gone. You'd be back in an independent country, proudly understanding that your rights come from your creator. You'd have an American foreign policy based on American interest, not on appeasing our enemies. And you would be committed to leading the world toward genuine religious liberty, not the imposition of some foreign beliefs. I think all of this is possible. It is only possible if we defeat Barack Obama. We have to repeal Obamacare. We have to repeal his anti-religious behaviors. We have to repeal the czars in the White House. He has given us a long list of repeals. I believe we are up to it. With your help, we will start to work. Our goal would be to have the new Congress, and you have to help win the Senate seat here to make this possible. We need to have the new Congress stay in session on January 3rd, and by the time they swear in the president on January 20th, we should have repealed Obamacare, Dodd-Frank, and Sarbanes-Oxley. The new president, as president, I would sign all 3 on the first day, and the very first executive order I would sign would eliminate all of the White House czars as of that moment. In addition, the second executive order would reimpose Ronald Reagan's Mexico City policy that no U.S. money goes to pay for abortion anywhere in the world. The third executive order would reinstate George W. Bush's freedom of conscience provision and would repeal every one of the Obama anti-religious moves in this administration and return us to genuine religious liberty. And the fourth executive order would move the American embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem in recognition of Israel's right to define its own capital. I participated in 1980 with Ronald Reagan in a remarkable change of direction for America that ended up creating 16 million new jobs, rebuilding our belief in America, and defeating the Soviet Empire. In 1994, I helped lead the Contract with America, which led to the largest one-party increase in American history, and which changed Congress decisively in one day. With your help next Tuesday, I would look forward to moving on to defeating Barack Obama decisively, to debating him in October, and I am quite confident that on the same stage that President Obama will in fact look like exactly as much of a radical as he is, and I think that we would have a remarkable debate, and at the end of that process, the country would repudiate the most radical administration of modern times. I need your help next Tuesday. I thank you for allowing me to come and share with you. Thank you. Good luck.